Hello all, it's me, Andy from Blitz Gaming. We're on part 2 of Planet Coaster, Can It Play? So we're coming on with the benchmarks, now with the 6 core processors. We're now going to put in 11, no, we're going to put in the 5600G first, and do the Intel stuff last. I will add a link in the corner for part 1, if you want to see the other part, which includes the Pentium Gold, the i3 processors, 12100 and 10105 processors. If you want to see hardware setups, again, see part 1. So we're on 720p with AMD's 5600G APU with Nvidia's 1030 graphic card. We're on the lowest preset, and you can see we've got no problem running as the standard. Basically, we're matching the 10105, the 4-core processors, no problem. Basically, at the end of the day, the graphic cards are now too slow. Shoot over to the RX 550. And you can see we've got a little bit of a boost. We're coming up to the 90s now, which is good. So the RX 550 is still getting a bit of a boost from a 6-core from a 4-core. Not a lot, but any frame rate's better than no frame rate. Just in case you're wondering, I have not used any scanning, super resolutions or anything like that from Nvidia or AMD. I don't think AMD's one's released yet, so I think it was a bit unfair. I may do a test run at a later date, but not at this moment in time. So we've got the 1650, doing 100 frames, no problem at all. It's now on the RX 6600 from AMD. Now if you notice that the frame rate's actually gone down from the Intel 1010 i3. The reason being, this has obviously got lower cache than probably that i3. I would have thought there's a lot in it. I'm watching out the clock speeds of the two, but there is 2 versions of this. This is the G version with the built-in graphics, and they've got an X version which has got lots of cache instead, and it's a lot faster than what we're getting on the screen now. And you can see Nvidia's 1030, it just basically is too slow. Ideally to play this game, we're under the 30 frame barrier. Okay, it's not a shoot 'em up, so you could in one way, I suppose, but I think it might be a bit laggy in some scenarios, like if you wanted to build a big building. The RX 550 from AMD is still hanging in there. It's still playable on the 5600G. So yeah, it's doing well. At the end of the day, you can still get this card. If you're lucky around the £100 barrier, you're doing well. Shoot up to Nvidia 1650. Don't forget we're on 720p still, and we're on medium presets. So yeah, we're still playing, no problem. We're in the 70s now. No struggles here on the 1650. Shoot over to the RX 6600, and well, you ain't going to struggle. If the 1650 is not struggling, the RX 66 certainly won't be struggling. So yeah, we're doing well across the board. Well, except for the Nvidia 1030, which is basically too slow. Go up to ultra settings on the Nvidia 1650. Again, you can see I haven't got no problems on this park. On the 2K park, that is, with the 1650. The RX 6600 from AMD. Again, it's going to have no problem running these settings. We switch over to the 6K park, and you can see that 1650 is still slightly under the 30 barrier. It's probably playable. He's there maxing out at 40, but you can't see no lag on the people or the water and the waterfall, so should be okay. RX 6600. Again, similar setup, well, frame rate to the 1650. basically there's got to be, we've got to have that bit of a oomph in performance on the CPU to get it running. Okay, let's get the chart up. You can see, as previously, the at 720p lowest settings, Nvidia's 1030 and the RX 550 are playable on lowest presets. Go to medium, they're now out of reach. Okay, the 550 is probably just in there, but the 1030 has got no chance. 1650 RX 6600 have no problem at all. Well up to the 100 barrier in lowest presets. Medium, gain 1650 RX 6600 have no problems. Ultra, again, they're still playable quite easily, especially the RX 6600. We go over to the 6K Park at lowest settings. RX 6600 is probably a few frames faster than the 1650, but we are definitely bottle capped by the processor. So we'll see what happens when we get the next one on the list. We're now on 1080p, lowest preset, with the Nvidia 1030. It's still playable, we're in the 40 frames, so you have no problem. As long as you don't want the shadows on, you'll be okay. You might be able to tweak it a little bit more if you're liking, but it ain't going to go much better than what you're getting now. And these RX 550, we're on there, what, in the 60s, 1% lower in the 50s, so we're a good 20 frames above the 1030. I don't think it'll stay like that when we go to medium settings. The shadows always give it a battering, but we'll see what happens when we get there. We switch over to the Nvidia 1650. Again, we're still doing 800 frames, so that's having no problems at all running the game at this time. Don't forget, this is my park, and everyone's going to have a different park. That's for dead cert. As I said, I've put a certain amount of objects in the game. For we got 9 rides or 10 rides, and we've just got them to 100% by putting some foliage around the entrances to keep it maxed out. RX 6600 again, we're averaging over the 100. 1% low is 20, no, sorry, 70 something. So yeah, no problem. I do like the way that dips. It might be like when a roller coaster comes around, or a fly on the background there goes up, batters the 1% low. I don't know, but the 1% low does have these massive drops here and there. Again, we see the 1030 just die. The CPU can't save it. Even though we're on 6 cores now, it just hasn't got the performance. Graphic card is just too slow for this demanding shadowing. The RX 550 again, yeah, it's lost 50% of its performance. It's probably now too slow to run. We're in the 20s now. Yeah, it's going to be no better off than the Nvidia card. Nvidia 1650 in the high 60s on the average, 1% low in the 40s, but yeah, but I won't worry too much about 1% low. As I said earlier, it's not a shoot 'em up. You're not going to notice lag on the screen. It's not going to cause trouble anyway. And these RX 6600 in the high 70s on the average, 1% low, won't worry too much about. Yeah, we're no problems in 1080p for the 1650 or the RX 6600. Nvidia 1650s in the 30s, so it's still playable on a 2K size park, a smallish park, on ultra settings. So 1080p ultra 1650 is still there. RX 6600, again, no problem. High 50s is it's not having any problems at all running 1080p ultra settings on a small park. Again, not much different from 720p to 1080p. It's still hovering around the 30 barrier, but it don't look particularly laggy, as I said earlier, on the people or the water, so you may be able to play it at this sort of state. Again, the RX 6600 is no different. Basically, the CPU, as I said before, is not fast enough to run the game in the background for the GPUs to keep rolling. Let's look at the chart. We'll see at the end of the day. Again, 1030, 550, no problem playing at low presets. Medium settings, basically, it's not going to happen. The 1650 and the 6600 are both in the hundreds. At the end of the day, it's just showing you at the end of the day, we're all reliant on the CPU now, no longer on the GPU at the top end. Medium presets, yeah, we're seeing the 60s for the 1650 and the 70s for the 6600. We go up to ultra. Okay, the 1650s on the limit, 6600 has no problem at all. I've included the 1030 and the RX 550 on the 6K part. You probably say, why am I doing that? Well, I was actually looking at me thousands of videos I've taken and I noticed that the 550 at 720p was doing about 34 frames a second. So I thought, oh, well, that's actually in playable state. And at 1080p, it's just under the 30s. The Nvidia 1030, it's got no chance at the end of the day. But I'll put it out in here to see what the difference is for competition. Now, 1650 and the RX 6600 are still running around 30 frames on the lowest presets. It's dropping below, getting into the 20s on the mediums and definitely in the 20s on the ultra. So no deals on mediums and ultra for the big boys. But again, those two cards, especially the RX 6600, is capped by the CPU. Looking at the RX 6600 GPU utilization on ultra settings for the big part, it was dropping below down to 60% and going up to 100%, back and forwards constantly. Basically saying, okay, look, I need more stuff from the CPU. Wow, we just made a massive improvement on the 1030. We're now on the Intel's 11400F and the Nvidia's 1030 is gone up, well, at least 25 frames. You had a big boost. Can't complain with that. No problems there. And I thought she was already maxed out on the last processor, but somehow she's found some more. So we're at 720p, lowest presets. Okay, now we're on the RX 550. And you can see actually it's actually now turned around. The RX 550 is actually now coming out slower. Just slightly, mind you, than the Nvidia 1030. It does show you just buying a GPU is not always a great idea over the last predecessor. If you've got a low end CPU and you suddenly go out and put a high end graphic card in there, you lose so much performance. Nvidia 1650, and we're topping back up to 110, average 43 on the 1% low. So still those big funny dips. I don't know where they keep coming from, but they're definitely there somewhere along the line. Now on the RX 6600, we're now up to 115 again, matching the 1650. But the RX 6600 is still being starved because the RX 6600 is still twice as fast as the 1650. The 1% low is up to 72. So we're getting there. If we look at the GPU usage in the 50s, so we're not maxing out the GPU. I mean, you could also go into settings and put a cap in there saying, well, I don't want you to run no less than, say, 100 and whatever. To make sure you get a really big boost. So now move up to medium settings, 720p on the Nvidia 1030. You can see now, for a change, at medium settings, she's now in the 30s. She's now got traction. RX 550, going in the 30s. So now the 1030 and the RX 550 are now throwing blows at each other for the crown. 1650 on 1140 left. So we're in the 70s, 1% low in the 60s. So yeah, we're doing well. Obviously, as I would go, the 1% low gets lower, or I say higher, depends how you want to look at it. Well, it gets better, I should say. And these RX 6600, 87s, 85s. So we're certainly ain't struggling on there at all. 1650. Ultra preset. So now we're in the 40s. So we're going on the up. I think it was in the 30s last time, if I remember rightly. Now we're in the 40s. So we're gaining, any gain is a plus. It doesn't matter how you look at it, it is a plus. We're in the 70s still with the Amd Rx 6600. 1% low is fine. So yeah, I mean, even though the 1% low is still dropping a good 15 frames. Again, it's not a shoot 'em up. I'm not sure how much you'll notice it. I mean, I have played it laggy, try and put builds together, and it can be a pain in some cases. Okay, we're now on the 6K part on the Nvidia 1030 at 720p, lowest presets. We've now got into the 30s, which is a massive bonus to what it was doing before. The 11400F is definitely gave it a boost, so no complaints at all. Again, RX 550 AMD. Again, we're in the 30s, so we're still on a playable rate. So yeah, at the end of the day, this is very much a CPU game, more than GPU, because we're surviving on a low end graphic card, but we're getting higher and higher on the GPU side. The 1650, we're still in the 30s. Basically, it's no different to really what the other two cards are doing, and this is card twice as quick than the other two. Sorry, but that's just the way it's getting fed. At the end of the day, it says on there GPU utilisation 45%, 46%. So it's not even being maxed out. But even the CPU utilisation is low. So it's a bit bizarre, really. So it's going to come down to not being horrible to Frontier. I mean, the game does play fairly good. Well, there's no problem in the campaign. That's how they probably looked at it. But building John was Parks. Well, that's always going to be down to the user. But obviously, it's lacking serious optimization at the high end. We're on the RX 550, medium settings. We're basically on the edge of life. 30 frames average, basically 13 frames, 1% low. The 1030 died, went down to 15 frames, just in case you're worried. It is on the chart, just in case you want to know. 1650. Again, we're still in those 30s. We just can't get away from that 30 barrier. Don't matter how hard we try, we ain't going nowhere. anytime soon. We're going to need 50 cores to get this on a boost. Direct 6600. Damn, still at the 30s. It just can't get over that barrier. Trying to think what the clock speed is. It's about 4.4 gig. 11400 at turbo. So, well, we're just going to need a faster processor and more cores. So let's take a look at a chart. As I said earlier, 1030 has gained big time with the RX 550. They are now extremely playable at lowest settings. Both the 1030 and the RX 550 are now in the 30s, 35 bracket for the medium settings. So you've gained something. We can't really complain. At the end of the day, I mean, as I said, the 1030's really gained performance with 11400F. The 1650's also gained traction. It's now playable, well, it's up to the 40s. It was playable before, but now it's in the 40s now, Ultra. So that's another good thing for Nvidia fans. So we're on the boost. And when we get up to the 6K park, everything's around the 30 mark as before, or the low mid 20s. So I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I'll move the camera around, see what it's like. It didn't particularly seem laggy. So I won't really say it's really bad. Just checked on the CPUs. It's definitely something to do with a level 3 and level 2 cache. The speeds of the cache goes, and the more you got, the better it comes out. As simple as that, really. Now at 1080p, lowest preset on Nvidia's 1030. Still on 11400F. So there we're in the 50s. We've got their average 57, 1% low 54. Again, I won't worry about the 1% lows. Not the type of game you have to worry about it. RX 550 in the 50s. Again, it pulls away now again from the 1030. It's a bit weird that the way they keep pulling. Depends what resolution we have. How those two work. 1650. Still in the hundreds, 115. At the end of the day, but what's the minimum? The minimum we're doing is 112. So it really has no problem running. So yeah. Your RX 6600. Similar to the 1650, 114. Average frame rate. Minimum literally the same. No problem. And obviously you've got the 1% low spiking down to 85. I've gone straight up to Ultra. As I said, missed out the 1030 and 550 because I don't make the 30 barrier. So yeah, so we're still in the 30s with a 1650 on Ultra preset at 1080p on the 2K park. So it's still playable. So now on the RX 6600, still around the L60 frames, minimum basically the same, and a 1% low, also in the 50s. So not really any juddering on a 2K park. We go up to the 6K park with the Nvidia 1650, 1080p lowest preset. So we're seeing those 30 barriers, so it's still doing what it needs to do, needs to play. Okay, we just need to break away from that 30 bash. RX 6600, again the same sort of thing. I think it's just basically we need more cache, as I said earlier, in the CPU to get the boost. The reason being that the 1200 and 1100 have the same clock speed, so it can only be down to the cache because the cache is different, and obviously the architecture is different as well. Nvidia 1650, she's hanging in there on the 30 barrier. She's doing okay. She looks alright. Yeah, don't worry about the 1% low. It's not the type of game what you're gonna worry about it too much. RX 6600. Yeah, okay, we're in the 30s. Again, we're not going to do an ultra. We'll just leave it to the chart. But it does look good with the old in depth with the shadows under the building. But yeah, okay, let's have a look at the chart. So straight away, we're going about 10 frames a second over the last 1080p run. And these 5600G. So yeah, we're doing pretty good. Can't complain really. On ultra settings, on a large part, we're still lousy. Still 30 or below. Not really gained. But we're going places everywhere else. As I said, like 10 frames here and now. So yeah, the Nvidia 1030 and the 550 is still bashing it out at the front end on the lowest presets. But again, as soon as we go to medium on 1080p, they just ain't got the strength at all. Now let's take a look at Intel's latest and greatest Alder Lake i5 12400. We're now on Intel's 12400 Alder Lake with Nvidia's 1030 medium preset. Not lowest, we're starting off at medium now. Now, I did notice some bizarre reason we've lost 10 frames over the previous generation and a 5600G. Yeah, for some odd reason, 1030 has gone downwards. It hasn't affected the number on the AMD's RX 550. It hasn't affected the speed going to the 12400. Unlike the 1030, it's a bit bizarre. I'll have to look into that. I don't know if it's to do with cache. Well, there's more cache on this chip. Clock speeds are similar, so I'm not quite sure what's gone wrong. Now on Nvidia's 1650, we're now into the 80s. So yeah, we're doing pretty well now. We gained about 5, possibly 10 frames over the previous generation for the 1650. So we ain't going to complain with that. The RX 6600, now we're starting to pull some weight now. We've gone from 80 to over the 100 barrier on medium presets on Intel's 12400 CPU. It's about time we've had that RX 6600 get rolling. We're now on a 6K park. Back on lowest setting, 720p lowest preset on Nvidia's 1030. You can see that frame rate has gone down 10 frames. Bizarre. Not quite sure why that's gone down. Not about having a full look into it. Why? I mean, the GPU is maxing out 100%, so the GPU is now gaining some. Now on the AMD RX 550, you can see the AMD RX 550 is it's 100% utilization. It is in the 30s, so you can play fine on the AMD card. It's just the Nvidia card for some bizarre reason has gone downhill. 1650 in the 40s, so yeah, certainly playable with a 1650. Yeah, it looks good. Can't complain. Again, the RX 6600 from AMD. Again, we're in the we're getting up to the 40s. So now we're starting to pull away. The RX 6600 is starting to get there, and I say, right, okay, I've got some oomph at last. What all these benchmarks do show outright is that just by putting in a GPU, don't expect massive miracles over something else. you do need a very good CPU to go with it. We now go to medium presets, and for some bizarre reason, just like the 1030, that's affecting the RX 550. On the medium settings, it's suddenly dropped to the 16s, where it was in the 30s, high 20s before. It's gone backwards. Again, don't understand why. It could be where the Ryzen in the background all suddenly merged at one point. Don't know. Now on the 1650, we're still in the 30s. So yeah, with 1650s, he's doing well in 720p on medium presets. Again, the RX 6600 is just under the 40 barrier, but it's still starting to slowly pull away now. Going. Now, I would like to see what it'll be like on AMD's 5800X 3D chip when it turns up in about 3 months' time, since they're now stating it's faster than Intel's 12900. Okay, let's look at the chart. You can see the Nvidia's 1030 went backwards. Don't know why. Something I have to look into. RX 550 gaining a good 5 frames, and 1650 and RX 6600 definitely gaining a good 15 frames over its predecessor, 11400. So yeah, the 12400 is now certainly showing its strength for the GPUs. Medium settings, the 1030 is too low. The RX 550 stays in there on the small parks. And for the first time, the RX 6600 hit the 100 barrier. On the 6K park, 1030 obviously not playable. The RX 550 from AMD, she's in there, she's in the 30s on the last presets, and the 1650 and the RX 6600 are now pulling away, getting into the 40s. Yeah, the 1% low, we will worry about the 1% low in this type of game because, as I said earlier, it's not a shoot 'em up. You're not really going to notice a spike. Or if you did notice a spike, it's not going to really destroy your gameplay. So yeah, and then we get up to ultra settings. RX 6600 is still in the 30s, that's still playable. 1650 is dropping. But yeah, the RX 6600 is now getting a CPU which is worthy enough to keep it going. Again, Nvidia 1030 just doesn't like the 12400F. It has gone backwards again. I have to look into and find out why it's doing it. We have definitely got 100% utilisation. CPU utilisation, mind you, is going down. That could be the reason. RX 550, going in the 50s, same as a 1030. It's looking good, no complaints. So 1650 is walking at the end of the day, 120 odd frames a second. No different to what it was in the actually I think it's probably put slightly improvement, I think, over the 720p. Again, the RX 6600 in the 130s. So no problem at all. At 1080p for the cards on lowest presets. Now on medium preset, not included the Nvidia 1030 because it's still low, and also not included the RX 550 because it dropped frames, as I said before, on medium preset. Even on the 720p, it dropped frames. I don't understand why. So yeah, I'm not included. So we're on the 1650 medium settings on the 12400 processor. So we're still in the 60s. So yeah, we're doing well on the 1650. Switch over to the RX 6600. We're still banging out 100 frames a second. And we're going up and down between 70 and 95 GPU utilisation. CPUs in the 40, 50 utilisation. So yeah, we can't complain. We're still doing very, very well. We switch over to the 6K park, not including the Nvidia 1030 because it's too slow. But we're now on the RX 550, running in 1080p, lowest presets. So we're on the edge of the 30s. But okay, it's playable. Just switch over to the 1650. We're in the 40s. So yeah, we're gaining traction. Can't complain. It's a pity the RX 550's gone downwards. Otherwise it would have probably been in the 35 barrier, but just the way it is. But the 1650 is doing fine. RX 6600, again we're in the 40s. Starting now to pull away, so we want it to be. So no complaints here. Now I go back to the 1650 on medium settings. So on the Intel i5 12400 1080p medium settings on Nvidia 1650. So yeah, it looks fine. We're still in the 30s, but it's a playable state, so we can't complain. Again, RX 6600, just like 1650, we drop to the 30s. You know, it has got a max setting now of 40. So yeah, it does play well. Can't complain. I won't put Ultra on here. We'll leave that to the chart. I've included this video on the 1650 at 1080p medium settings just to show you what it runs like. So yeah, the frame rate does change. You know, obviously you get right down to first person mode. You can see it's in the 20s. Screen tearing, don't forget we ain't got VSync on, so screen tearing may come up. I mean, it looks alright. It's nice and colourful. I mean, again, it's not lagging in any way at all. So I'm not going to moan too much the way it is. Got a third person mode. Frame rate goes up a bit. I mean, obviously there's a lot of people around. I mean, you can't get any busier than this really. When you go on the rides, it goes up. Now we can zoom right out. So we're in first person mode on, I can't remember the name of the ride, but this one. So yeah, it looks alright. We're going up. It's all like averaging in within the 40s. So it depends what you're doing and where you are. It certainly makes a difference to the camera frame rate. Now again, don't worry about the screen tearing. We now zoom out, pan the camera around. You can see it's not particularly jerky, so we're doing well. We're in the 40s. Like I said, that doesn't seem to be the main thing. It's just somewhere it just basically it does come to a standstill. It just gets to a certain number of whatever that number is, usually around the 8,000 barrier, and then she stops. A quick bash on the roller coaster. You can see the frame rate is again. We're averaging what, 29. You see it run. So you can see the roller coaster is running fine. At the end of the day, it's not particularly jerky, freezing anywhere. It seems to be following what it needs to be done. So go back to the chart. Again, as always, Nvidia 1030 and Amd's RX 550. Play fine at lowest presets. Just got no chance on medium. The CPU, the 12400F can't save them. 1650 and the RX 6600. Again, they're up to the 130 barrier. No problem for them there. On the mediums again, they're still very high in the 60s for 1650, and we're doing 100 again on the RX 6600. Ultra settings. Okay, the 1650s in there in the 30s, and the RX 6600 is in the 60s. So both playable on a 2K park. We go up to the 6K park and things change a lot. The RX 550 and Nvidia's 1030 are not playable. The 1650 and the RX 6600 are in the 40s, so they can be played on 1080p lowest presets with 6,000 plus people. Well, at 6,000 I can, 8,000, 9,000 will be a different matter. But when we go up to medium and ultra, and you can see it goes down. Only the RX 6600 breaking the 30 barrier. But yeah, the 12400 is definitely made an improvement on the speed of two of the graphic cards. That's a certainty. And I still don't understand why the RX 550 and the Nvidia 1030 had those funny, it went backwards. I'm not quite sure what's gone wrong there. We now switch up to Intel's i5 12600K. So now we've got some boost. We're at 720p medium presets. Not going to do live presets. You see the 1030. Still can't manage that 30 barrier. We've got 100% utilization. It's basically not having it. Their RX 550 is now gone the opposite way, back to where it should have been, back in the 30s. I still can't understand why on the 12400 it went backwards. It's a bit beyond me. On this CPU and processor, we're doing 100% utilization, 17-20% CPU utilization. So now switch up to the 1650. Still 100% utilization on the GPU, 30% on the CPU. So averaging 80s, 1% low, 70s odd. It does vary, that CPU going up and down depending what GPU you got. How much the GPU is taking off from the CPU. Switch up to the RX 6600. GPU utilization 70%. CPU is 38%. So it does vary. I mean, now we've gone right up to 116 frames at medium resolution. So we've got no struggles here. The RX 6600 is now really pushing it. So Peter, I don't have a 12.7 and a 12.9. I'll be able to really see how well this RX 6600 can go. 1650 ultra settings, 47s. Yeah, it's gaining traction. No problems for the 1650 on a 2K park. And these RX 6600 in the 70s, high 70s. I think we hit the 80s on the 12400. So we're slightly down a bit. So now switch back over to Nvidia's 1030 on 6K park, and now basically in the lowest preset, but we're in the 20s. She ain't got enough power. Again, the RX 550s in the 30s. Can't complain really, as I said. Nice budget card. Got decent CPU. it can play Planet Coaster. Don't know about the other games, mind you, but it certainly seems to do well on Planet Coaster. Gain 1650 in the 40s, and it's maxing out 55 there. Minimum 39 frames and a 1% low, which I don't really worry about in this type of game, but down at the 30s. Looks alright, plays alright. RX 6600, averaging 40s, minimum 43, and a 1% low in the 30s again. Can't complain at all. We're still on the 1650. Again, we're still in the 30s, so at medium preset. So we're doing good, can't complain. 6,000 people, yeah, 30 odd frames a second. We're still at 100% GPU utilization, and CPU is 40 odd. Switch over to the RX 6600. GPU utilization is going between 60 and 80%. CPUs in the 30s and the 40s, and we're doing 40 frames at the end of the day, minimum 38. So it's still doing extremely well. Switch up to Ultra, and now 1650s now dropped into the 20s. Well, it's got to go down sooner or later. And the RX 6600, we're still on our average of 40. I'm sitting at 25. Minimum's gone down to 22. So it's playing out in the day, but we can't complain. So going by the chart, I still don't understand why that Nvidia 1030's gone down on the 12th series. I checked the video and it was doing, GPU was doing 100% utilization, CPU was doing around 20-25, and we're doing about 1.7 to 1.8 gig of video memory. So we ain't capped the memory. There's obviously something holding it back. I don't know, it's obviously not optimized for the 12th series because it's only just come out. So pretty really, it's gone backwards. The RX 550 seems to have no problem, even though it did have a funny turn on one of the settings. I can't remember what it was. But we're still in the 80s on low preset on a 2K park. Now the most astounding thing is the RX 6600. If you remember when we done the Pentium Gold, the RX 6600 was doing around 60 to 70 frames a second. We're doing nearly 100 frames more, just going up to a higher, well, it's not a higher clock speed, it's got more cache, but it's got more cores. So more cores matter in this game, without doubt. So the 1030 RX 6600 in medium, 1030 is not playable, RX 550 is just in there, 1650 and RX 6600 no problems, and even at Ultra, the 1650 is still in the 40s. So we go up to the 6K park. Okay, the 1030 is not playable. RX 550 is just in there. Can't complain with a budget card. It's done very, very well. 1650 and the RX 6600 has no problem. We go up to Ultra settings and really only really playable on Amd's RX 6600 with its 8 gig of memory. So yeah, and if you look at the memory usage, we're up to 7 gig of memory, so certainly making use of the memory on the video card. We'll now switch up to 1080p. We're on the RX 550 and we're on medium presets. Didn't include the Nvidia 1030 because it was running in the 15s frames per second. Really too low to play the game. I mean, we're in the 25s on the RX 550, which is still too low to play the game, really. So we got now on the 1650 medium presets at 1080p. No problem running this. We're in 60 frames. average. Minimum's also in the 60s, so we've got no problem, and even the 1% lows in the 60s. So running a nice, consistent, smooth run. RX 6600, still no problems. 1080p medium presets, still in the hundreds. We're doing what, average 116, minimum 112. Obviously lows in the 90s, so again, no problem at all for the RX 6600 on a 2K park. We switch up to Ultra 1650 in the 30s, so again, it can play a 2K park on Ultra preset quite happily at the end of the day. We'll switch over to the RX 6600, averaging 50s, minimums in the 50s, so we're doing no problem at all. Even the 1% lows, very high in the 40s. So again, no problem for the RX 6600 on a 2K park. Now on a 6K park, this time I've got the 1030, Nvidia's 1030. As again, it's still not making the grade. We were in the 20s, it just ain't powerful enough to run. Well, I could run it, depends how, what you call running and not running. Okay, the RX 550, yeah, we're still in the 30s, still doing well. I've got to admit, I'm extremely impressed with the RX 550. It's managed to stay just ahead of everything what you need, and it's only a budget card. So now on the 1650, still in the 40s, we're not really struggling. So yeah, that CPU's definitely gave it a good oomph. The 12600. Now on the RX 6600, still in the 40s. Throughout really, can't complain. The maxing in the 50s there. Yeah, the older late CPUs have really made it come through. Can't complain at all really. We go up to Ultra presets, and you can see the 1650 is now too slow, just as before. Switch over to the RX 6600, and we're in just playable at the end of the day. So in just case you want to know what it's like on a top end rig, I've got a Ryzen 5900X with a 3080 and 32 gigs of memory, and this is on 1440p, and say we're like running around 30 frames, and it, well, to me it's not lagging even though it's quite low on the frame rate. Don't forget, all these benchmarks are done on my two parks. They're not going to be the same as your parks. They're going to be different sizes, different setups, and again the same with your hardware. So only take my frame rates I've done my benchmarking as a guideline.
Street Fox Coffee.
Okay, I hope this gave you some sort of insight into playing Planet Coaster. I did probably do a few too many runs on videos, but I thought, well, I like to show you what it looks like. It's all like saying, oh, this is the frame rate, and you get some people say, well, we weren't lagging. So I thought sometimes I'd rather show you the video footage as well as doing a chart. Okay, well, let's get the chart up. And if you want to see me building this park, subscribe to my channel and watch my videos. Okay, the chart. Once again, Nvidia's 1030 and Amd Rx 550. Have no problems running. One's in the 40s, one's in the 50s, and 1650 and the RX 6600. Well, they're in the hundreds, no problem. I'm quite surprised where the 1650 keeps staying up with the RX 6600. I mean, the RX 6600 is twice as powerful as the 1650, but it don't seem to break away at low settings. Medium settings it changes. The Nvidia 1650 is in the 60s and AMD's RX 6600 it's all bashing out on the hundreds. It certainly comes into play on the medium preset. And the RX 550 and Nvidia's 1030 is not playable. We go up to Ultra. And the 1650 is in the 30s, while the RX 6600 is in the 50s. So yeah, it's doing what it should be doing, giving maximum performance. We go up to the 6K Park, the RX 550 and Nvidia's 1030 are not really playable now. Basically, they're too low for really, I mean, you should always be over the 30 barrier. Well, the 1650 and the RX 6600 have no problem. We go to the medium settings and they're just in there. The 1650 is on bearable limits. Then we go to Ultra and really they're both in the 20s. So you can make your mind up if you want to play or not. And again, it's not a shoot 'em up game. So you may not notice it much. You may not really get on your nerves while you're playing the game. Okay, I hope this has all gave you a real good insight into what you have. It's obviously you need a good CPU, that's the dead cert, to play this game. More cores the better, because it's a big database running in the background for all those people, all those objects you put in, and hopefully a nice graphic card to make it all look lovely on the screen. As new processors come out, I will update the chart. But I don't do high-end stuff, so don't think I'll be buying the big 12900K. Okay, that's me done. Hopefully you enjoyed the videos, and I will see you in the next one. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe. That is all. Have fun.